Hey, welcome back to Morrison Heights Family Connect. I'm Tim Peabody. This is the podcast of Morrison Heights Baptist Church. Our guest today recently painted the church, and it is unbelievably good. Everybody knows and loves Wyatt Waters. Thank you, Wyatt, for being on the podcast today.
So nice to be here. It was great to meet you outside here. I feel like I'm on the grounds of where we did the painting.
When I saw you painting, I couldn't resist stopping by. Had to stop and talk. I used to stop and talk a little more often when I was in college, and my roommate Jason was always stopping in your gallery.
What a talented guy, really.
Yeah. So I wanted to have you on the podcast. Wanted to talk about this unbelievable painting that you did of the church. And we have a print here. I noticed you told me a little flaw there meant you could bring this one. I appreciate that.
My wife does the prints and the scans. We do everything in-house there, and that one had a flaw, so she trusted me with it. Otherwise, she probably doesn't.
With it either, if not. But tell us about this painting. What was the experience of painting it like? What did you see?
This one presented a lot of the thing about painting to me is you have to have a problem. You have to have a problem, or there's nothing to do, because it's like a book. If a book doesn't have some tension, some murder, somebody did something wrong, a crime, there's just no interest. You have to have some tension. So the problem is actually the part of the painting that I like the most.
So what was the problem with this one?
The many different angles.
Okay.
And this is a painting that I chose to paint on a sunny afternoon when the shadows were long. And since it's around the corner from where I live, I was able to come down here in several sittings and get this done. Also, I wanted to have people populated out here because I think when you have people in a painting, it gives you an opportunity to project into the painting. Mm-hmm. And that time after church, I remember when I was a little kid, that was in church you're really quiet and you don't say anything, but then you go outside and you start talking, and that was what I wanted to portray.
So by projecting to the painting, you mean a person sees the painting and sees a person there and remembers a time that they were in that person's shoes.
And they can be that person. I mean, you can, when you have a painting there of a person, you in that painting you become that person for a little bit, subconsciously probably. But I always enjoy putting people in there. I don't try to avoid them. To me, it's important. And simplification. It's a very complex building with all the different angles. And I also wanted to use the complexity as an opportunity to simplify. Mm-hmm. In painting, that's very, very important.
So if I were to attempt to paint something like this, I would have to sketch the angles first with a pencil or something. Mm-hmm. Is that what you do? You sketch the angles, make sure they're right, and then you put paint on?
Yes. And I used to use a little trick that was like, I would imagine what is in front of me as flat, because it's going to be flat on paper. And I would imagine a clock. 6 o'clock is straight up, 6 o'clock is straight down, and 12 o'clock is straight up, 3 and 9 straight across horizon. And I would imagine the face of a clock on here, and I would try to judge the angles, like, oh, that's 2:30, that's 2:40. It helps you imagine. But after a while of doing that, it just becomes second nature, and you just see the angle, and you paint the angle, you draw the angle. But the pencil is just the place to begin. And I have this saying that the pencil serves the brush. So if maybe things, if you change your mind about where it needs to be with your brush, you listen to that.
Well, we love the painting. I heard that we can buy it, a print of it. Is that right?
Yes. My wife, like I say, at the gallery in Old Town, and I really like what's happening in Clinton right now. There's a lot of activity and things happening, and we live around the corner ourselves, but you can come into the gallery and she can take care of you there. Her name is Christy.
Okay.
And she loves being in Clinton. So she's
good. I'm excited. I hope I get a copy of it. And Dr. Charles, my boss, who you painted
it's going
it
to curl,
for,
I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to leave it standing. Maybe
I don't think.
Maybe we'll lay it down. But the painting was commissioned for Dr. Charles' retirement.
Yeah.
And we chatted with him a few minutes ago, and as you could tell, he loves it. We all love it.
You know, I do a lot of things, and sometimes I'll paint weddings, or I'll do things for gifts for people, or anniversaries, or retirements. And you get a chance to be a part of this thing that you're not really a part of, but you get involved in that, and it's great fun being associated with something so positive. You know, it's. I remember I was doing something for some woman a while back, and she was getting a gift for her husband, and I would call. This is before cell phones, and can you leave a message? No, I really can't. I was trying to keep it a secret.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then finally when I get called, it says, "Oh, we wondered what was going on. You know, you never told us what you were doing."
I said, in trouble.
I try to keep a secret. I'm pretty good at that. Pretty good.
Well, I think it was a surprise to Dr. Charles. I don't think he knew. Well, I'll have to check.
I hope he liked it anyway, whatever it was.
What's it like to put yourself in a state where you can paint something that has a lot of emotional meaning to other people? But you know, Morrison Heights is not your church. Is it a challenge to put a lot of emotion into your paintings when it's a place or a subject that you're not normally, it doesn't grab you emotionally?
That's really important. Yeah. What you have to do is, and you have to do this with every painting. I have to reach a level of excitement or interest that is genuine, and one of the ways I do that is I just visually become involved with what I'm seeing. I look at this and I try to become excited by what I'm seeing. But invariably, like you say, people put their own meaning into this. And a good part of the painting, Dr. Gore said this. Everybody knows Dr. Gore.
Dr. Gore passed away, about a year and a half ago?
Yeah. He was a great man, great teacher, but a great man. I mean,
so many good pieces of art with his name on around Clinton.
Yes, and I wouldn't be painting without him. I guarantee you that, because I think he was the first adult in college that told me that I could do this for a living, and maybe he was kidding me, but I believed him. You know,
he was right.
But it was a big deal, and anyway, Dr. Gore said, a good painting is like a half-filled picture. You can take something out of it and you can put something into it. So you don't want to say everything about the painting. You have to be selective about what you leave out, because that allows people, when they view this, to finish the painting with their own needs and experiences and associations. And I hope that's an answer to what you're asking, because I think it's important to leave something undone so people can fill in. If too much is done, there's no involvement from the viewer's end. I don't even consider that I finished the painting. I bring it to a certain place and it's finished each time by each viewer. So,
show us what you're working on today.
Oh yeah. Today, I try to get out every day, and since I work on location, I was wanting to work on a Christmas scene. This is probably something that will be used more for next year than for this year. This is how they start out. I do this just the exact opposite of what traditional watercolor teaches, to work with your darks, to work with your lights and build up your darks gradually. But what I do is I do my darks and midtones first. And if you notice, they bleed together a lot. And there's no definition between one dark and another. And when you do this, you're really essentially painting the lights and the darks simultaneously. You just haven't tinted them yet. The white paper stands for the lights. And that's another thing about watercolor. You have to be, with transparent watercolor anyway, you use the white paper to make the lights. So you have to be very selective. It's like jewelry. You don't want to be too much like Mr. T, you know. You want to kind of keep it selective and tasteful.
I didn't know that rule, Tom.
Mr. T, that's speaking to generation there. But and this was Muscagny's, the Parkway's back behind here, and the buildings
people
right
in our
here.
church will recognize that.
And I remember these trees here because I lived across the street at Carrie Evans' apartments there for oh golly, for 5 or 6 years, I guess. And that's another thing. If you paint something that means something to you, you want to use that. Yeah. But if you paint something you've never experienced before or seen before, you want to use that. The problem of painting is specific to each individual subject and location. And, also what you're going through. It's a great therapy. It helps balance your life. I can speak, for myself on this. I think it puts things in order. And in the modern world we live in, there's so much going on. And every once in a while, it's a good idea to turn that stuff off and to find some peace. And that's where I get that with painting. I'm fortunate that I get to do something that is so good for me that I also make a living, because usually I have to sacrifice a little bit more.
Yeah, people find that often in their hobbies, but don't always find it in their career.
Yes. And I honestly try to pretend like I don't make my living doing this, because it jinxes it. If I think too much, I got to make this work, because it's kind of a mental game. If I have to make this work, I have to make this work. If you try too hard to make it work, it jinxes it. It doesn't work. It's like trying too hard to be natural.
I used to do that in middle school basketball all the time. I was terrible at it.
I bet you were a good basketball player, though.
It took several years of playing with Jason before I could play anything decent. But
it's a lot like that. The practice of this needs to become second nature, but it's awkward at first. It's always awkward. No one is born knowing how to do this, but many people are born with the love. It's all about whatever it is that you love. My father was a coach. And I grew up, I used to think I was a disappointment to him sometimes because I didn't play. All my brothers played, my older brother Jim and younger brother Joel. But my dad was the kind of guy that wanted you to find the thing that you wanted to do. I was really fortunate. I got lessons very, very early. My mom got me the lessons. Yeah,
painting lessons.
I wasn't even in school. I was...
Like before first grade, you were getting painting lessons?
I was painting when I was 2.5.
What?
They moved us, my dad moved us to Florence, Mississippi, and I was 2.5, and I do remember this because the floor had holes in it, and my mom patched it with some stuff and painted it, but you could still see the patches. So to disguise the patches, she spatter painted. And this is one of the miracles of my life, because you don't know my mom. No. But she gave me a brush and asked me to help spatter. And I remember I did that, and that happened. And it made you feel a certain way. It wasn't you, but you did it. And that's how Jackson Pollock painted himself. But that's when I began painting. And then a woman in a kindergarten class taught me to read using painting.
Really?
When that was over, my mom talked her into teaching private classes, which continued through school there.
How do you teach somebody to read using painting?
She would have pictures and a storybook, and she would use that. And then after we had read the story, she would have us draw the story, paint the story. So we would illustrate the stories. It's funny because that's one of the things I do in my life is I illustrate books. But they were all writing. Words and pictures were always connected to me, and so that's how I began painting. And then I moved to Clinton in the 10th grade, and I knew how that was. You're not going to get a lot of dates. As a painter, so I kind of...
Painting wasn't...
Yes. Mrs. Allen, who's a great lady, everybody remembers me being in her class, but I was never in her class. And it was nothing to do with her. It was being too shy to let people know that this is what I did.
She taught art?
Yes, she taught art.
But you never took her art class?
No, but every once in a while in Kroger, I'll meet somebody in the produce section, and they've got an elaborate story. And I just have to let them go on because
they think
they
were in class with you.
Yes,
in art class,
and it's an elaborate story. It's like and you were sitting right in front of me, and you just kind of have to let it go. And it's a nice lie. or invention anyway. I'm not going to say lie, but
sure.
It's certainly an untruth, though.
They sincerely remember it. It's just a mistaken memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Mrs. Allen. So I didn't do anything in high school, and then college came along. And to be honest, I was just a rudderless ship floating around. And I went to Mississippi College on accident. But a lot of things in my life might appear accident, but I kind of think they're providential. I think these things happen. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't have anything to do with it. It was something that I wouldn't have had that much judgment to do. Mm-hmm. And my freshman year, and I began majoring in art. And, college is where you can reinvent yourself. It's a good thing because high school it's difficult, Mm-hmm. And my faculty advisor, Ron Alexander, a really great guy, he was a really good teacher, he advised that I change my major, which was a pivotal thing for me because it scared me. I wanted to major in art, but I was not making the commitment that needed to be made. Mm-hmm. And it scared me really bad. And it's good to be scared for the right reason.
What were your reasons for being scared? The fear of failure? Fear of not making a career out of it?
You got all those. And I could add a few more. I mean, it was really mostly, I was pretty shy. I was very shy. I didn't date in high school much. And I just was not a social mixer. Mm-hmm. But that forced me out of just being by myself and doing the painting. Because that's what you do for painting. You do it by yourself. And it forced me. And also, the next year, right after that, I continued to major in art. Dr. Gore gave me a work study, which is really just minimum wage for building shelves and helping him pug clay and going to military auctions with him and stuff like that. One of my jobs was drilling the rivets off of a jet fuselage that they had in his backyard. He bought
what was he doing
a
with
jet.
That?
Well, you melt it down, you can make aluminum, and from that you can make sculpture. That's the military auction. Or you could go he would go to military auctions and buy worn out tank gears, which are made of brass, and make bronze out of that. Huh. So I was getting minimum wage for helping pour 2,000 degree metal, which is very dangerous.
Yeah.
But Dr. Gore got a hold of me, is my point, and he made me work, and he really took an interest, and I was nothing to be. He didn't take an interest in me because I was good. I became better because he took an interest in me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway,
I bet you were pretty good to start with.
No, I really wasn't. But I wanted to do it. I really wanted to do it. I mean, I will say that whatever I lacked in ability, and I lacked so much, like contrast, that's why I do this. One of the big reasons I paint from dark to light, I was the worst in my class in contrast.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely. But I remember thinking, I'm going to make that my strong card. I'm going to make my weakness my strong card.
Was it that you had a hard time seeing where the contrast was in your subject, or you couldn't translate it to paper?
I think that was part of it. But even further part of that was that I could not acknowledge enough to put it down on paper because I was just timid about that.
You didn't have the confidence to lay down the darks.
Yes.
With, make them bold.
Yes.
And
you have to have that with anything you do.
Yeah.
You have to have a passion for it. And it has to be, everybody wants it, but you got to want it enough to do it. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Gore helped me find that, and that was really important. Really important.
I think there are a lot of people that have some talent and some interest in something, but that fear of doing it boldly, the fear of people just telling them, you're no good at that. I mean, I see people who are afraid to sing because they're afraid they're not that good, people who are afraid to do sports or, any kind of thing. For you, how did you overcome it? Was it an intentional process, or did you just wake up one day and realize I'm not afraid anymore?
It was a gradual process. Certainly college helped. My sophomore year, that was also a year that I went with Dr. Gore to help hang a show in Washington, D.C., and I got paid to do that, and I saw real paintings. But I think it got to a better place after college when I was painting outside. I had moved to do an artist in school program in Lauderdale County, and I saved as much as I could save, and I was a very aggressive saver because I was going to come back and make a go of painting. Because what you do is you get a job, save money, quit, paint, run out of money, get a job, save money. You know, it's just you do it because there's no job. You have to make your job, and so I had moved there, and I moved back, and I went to the galleries, and it's like many other things, you know. We need somebody with experience. Somebody needs to know you, and nobody knew me. So at that time, it was 1980. 81. They were tearing down downtown Jackson. So I went where they were tearing things down, and I began painting. At the corner of Lamar and Capitol. And that was Deposit Guarantee Plaza building at the time. And the best place to show in Mississippi, really, pretty much hands down, because of the traffic. People coming there to get big loans. They would hang out in the lobby and look at the artwork. But I couldn't get a show at a gallery. And they weren't going to give me a show at the Deposit Guarantee Plaza either. However, this is a weird series of events because I thought it would be good to paint on the street, like I say, for some exposure. Really hot that summer, and people mostly thought you were homeless. And you meet people at a most honest level,
I bet,
when they think you're homeless. And so I didn't sell much. And I was kind of disheartened by it, but I kept on painting because I had this money that I had saved to live on for about 6 months if I did it meagerly enough. And I was living in Carrie Evans' apartment at the time. And anyway, I was nearly out of money, and this woman came up who I'd see her, and she was one of the people that would stop and say hi, you know, because most people didn't. And she said, "Hey, my job, I work at Deposit Guarantee, and I put shows together. And somebody, like artists are prone to do, someone canceled, but I need a show in 2 weeks." And I had all these paintings. And if I'd sold a bunch of those paintings, I couldn't have had the show.
Yeah.
And so I put the show together in 2 weeks, and that got me on a more professional. I can make a living better.
Now that you've had a show, people can see you as like, okay, he's a legit artist.
Yes.
We'll put him in our gallery.
Yes. That's how it works with a lot of things.
Sure.
People are slower to catch up, but there's always somebody that's willing to help you, or someone who was not a part of your plan that becomes an integral part. And I didn't know her name for a long time. I've got it written down somewhere, I think, now. But it's not like I knew her or anything. I didn't. But you got to do your part, you know, and that's how it worked for me anyway.
Wow. So you would consider that your first big break?
Yeah.
That show?
That was definitely a game changer. Not that I just did everything great after that. It's just that I got a foot in the door, and I wasn't taking my foot out.
Yeah.
And I had that, and I recognized that as a break. And it translated to getting in other galleries.
So you've worked with several books. The cookbook is the one that almost everybody has seen, I feel like. Who collaborated with you on the cookbook?
Robert St. John.
Robert St. John, I should know that.
He's a great guy. He and Jill, his wife, showed up. And this is another thing, too. I mean, you look back and all this stuff seems to be orchestrated, but really it's just stuff happening, you know, but not really. I had opened a gallery. I had gotten to a place. I'd done 2 books before, 3 books, I guess. And I was doing better. And I wanted to open a gallery to where I didn't have to work through a gallery system. And nothing's wrong with galleries, but I like the freedom of being my own agent.
Yeah.
And I started a gallery in Old Town. We've been there for 22 years now. And he had seen some of my paintings in the 2 previous books, Another Coat of Paint, a book of Jackson, and Painting Home, a book of Mississippi. And he had this idea to do a book that used paintings and writings and food to tell the story of Southern culture, which is an important thing for me.
He would be upset that I called it a cookbook.
Well, it is.
It does have recipes, though, right?
It's like that. I told somebody it was like that Twilight Zone episode where these aliens come and they're helping mankind, and they could translate only so much of the book, and it was to serve man, and then finally they're all going on this ship, flying away to this planet and have the better life. Someone runs out and they're screaming at him not to get aboard the ship like getting on an airplane, and he said, "It's a cookbook." It's a cookbook. I didn't even think about it as a cookbook originally, but it is a cookbook because it does involve writings, and it involves paintings, and of course food, and those are all very Southern things. To me, they are, and that's what I enjoy doing. My dad taught Mississippi history, and this idea of being Southern is not always as positive as you want it to be when people find out you're from Mississippi.
Yeah, they have assumptions about you or where you came from. Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's how that began. He and Jill showed up, and next thing you know, we're working on a cookbook. But you see, I'd opened that gallery, and about a month and a half later, my dad had a stroke. Which I'll tell you, I don't know that I would have opened a gallery if he'd had the stroke before.
Yeah, wow.
There are all these things, the timings that happen, and that it gave me something to pour that work into. And we did the book and did very well with it. Bought a building. So
I've been in there. It's a great gallery, Grace.
You think, well, you drive in old cars because you're an artist. Had Volkswagen vans and stuff, old cars. And we can finally buy a new car, or we can buy a building.
You went for the gallery.
And so we're still in the old car business, but we, my dad said, they're not making any more land, and I thought having a place to hang your hat would be good for painting.
Well, it sure is your gallery is something that makes Clinton unique. It's a distinctive of our town that a lot of us take a lot of pride in. Even people that never set foot in there. It's something that makes us proud that you and your gallery are part of Clinton. So. And now that you've painted Morrison Heights, we feel an even deeper connection.
Well, we know when you paint something, it stays with you. It stays with you. I can remember. You can pull a painting from 30 years ago, and I can tell you what happened that day. It's not that I got a good memory. It's that the painting impresses it in your memory in some way. So I have very, very good memories, and talking you out there, and all the people wondered what I was doing, because it was late in the afternoon,
Well, I wasn't afraid to stop by. I had to stop and chat.
Good.
See what was going on. And as a reward, I got a picture of the painting in progress. I haven't shared it with anybody.
Good. I'm glad to do.
But I didn't want to violate any kind of privacy that you have. But I have a picture on my phone of that painting halfway done, and I love looking at it.
There's no HIPAA with me. You can do what you want to with that. It's good.
Well, maybe we'll share it on the podcast, Tom, if we want to do that. Well, we normally spend a second mentioning people in our church that we're praying for and pray during the podcast. So I want to mention several who have lost loved ones this week. Jerry Ray, of course, has lost her brother, Wayne Ritchie. You knew Wayne.
Yes, Wayne was a great guy. I don't know, probably the biggest volunteer in Clinton, I think.
Yeah, volunteering. Every time I saw him out, it was either at church or it was volunteering somewhere at the library or somewhere in the community. We miss Wayne already and praying for Jerry, his sister. Gomer Wallace lost his sister, Phyllis Price, and Abby Blackwell, who is married to Merritt, recently married, weeks ago, I think. She lost her grandmother this week, so we're remembering her as well. Sonia Austin lost her grandmother, and Kathy Langworthy lost her stepmom. Richard Morris lost his wife, Diane Morris. Too many this week. Sad to have to mention so many of those. I'm going to pray, and I'll pray for you and your work as well as we
thank you for that. It's
see what God has in store for you next.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for Wyatt and his work in our community and the many ways that you've blessed us through him. We're thrilled to have this new painting as part of our church's heritage now. We remember those that we've mentioned who we're praying for, several who have lost loved ones, many people who are grieving, people in their life that can never be replaced. We remember them now, we pray for them, ask for your comfort on them and their families. Lord, we thank you for your hand in our lives. Thank you for the ways that you've guided each of us, and we pray that we'll continue to follow you. And I pray for your blessing on Wyatt Waters and his work and the path that you have in front of him. I pray that your face will shine on it. I pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Well, Wyatt, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for being here.
We didn't mention everything we wanted to mention, but we mentioned a lot.
You never do. Thank you for doing this.
I love the story about you painting downtown Jackson and finding that break. Somebody will want this calendar. We should mention it. These are for sale at your gallery as well, I guess. But I like the Piggly Wiggly.
The pig. If you grow up in a little town in Mississippi, you're bound to know a pig somewhere near there. The first modern grocery store. Did you know that? It started in Memphis. Before that, grocers had to go back behind there and get all stuff and put it together in a box. And
no kidding. Piggly Wiggly was the groundbreaker.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I didn't know that before this episode. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed watching the episode today. Thank you for watching. It means a lot that you stay connected. This is Morrison Heights Family Connect. We love our family.